What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Not About Wrestling. I'm your host, Chris Illuminati, and today I'm talking to. I gotta do it. Mr. Anderson! Okay, I don't do it as well as he does, but I'm talking to Ken Anderson. Many people remember Ken from his run in the WWE as Mr. Kennedy. He was also a former world champion in Impact Wrestling, and he's now a member of the NWA family. I've known Ken for a long time. We touched base back in my writing days when I came out with the Assholeology book, and Ken was a fan, and he actually he became an asshole on TNA TV. But Ken's an all-around good dude. He's now living in Minnesota. He opened a wrestling school in 2016, and we talk about that for a little bit. But him and I talk about a lot of different things in this episode. We talk about his love of performing at an early age, bringing humor to his wrestling promos, reconnecting with his dad and his family after years apart, and a new skill he learned because of the COVID-19 shutdown. Overall, it's a really fascinating interview, and Ken's a really good dude. So, I don't know, strap on your wrestling boots if you've got them. If you do, that's kind of weird, unless you're a wrestler. I don't know. But, yeah, here's me talking to Ken Anderson. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Not About Wrestling. I'm your host, Chris Illuminati, and with me today, can I do the intro, or do you want to do it? Can I do the...
Go ahead, please. God, I hate doing it, so go ahead.
Mr. Anderson. I mean, I can't do it as good as you. It's Ken Anderson, everybody. How you doing, man?
Good. Pretty good to get, a little more bass on your voice.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? I'm kind of like, when you do it, you're in a giant, arena filled with people. I'm in an apartment with my windows open, and I don't know if screaming Mr. Anderson with my windows open is a great idea.
You should try it. Try it sometime.
I should, but in the middle of the night.
I have the same sort of scenario going on here, and when I do those, what are those celeb VMs or the cameos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Constantly yelling my name. And I'm sure the neighbors just love me.
Does anyone ever ask for your cameo and go, no, don't do that?
No, not yet. I wish they would, though. God, I wish they would.
Okay, the first part, it's not really a wrestling thing, but it's something I've always wondered, and you might have been asked this before. When the microphone dropped down,
yep.
How big of a pain in the ass is that for, go to different arenas every time? And was that a boom? How did they do that? Did they really go to the top?
It wasn't a pain in the ass for me, so... No, but I do know that, it was definitely a separate thing that had to always be factored in.
Okay.
Everywhere we went. Even when I was in WWE, when we did house shows and stuff like that, we did not do I just had a regular microphone. We never did the drop-down mic.
Right.
And I would always do this stupid thing where I would reach for it and it's not there, it doesn't come down, and then I'd run out into the front row, grab a chair, and have the announcer stand on the chair and then lower the mic down.
See, I like that. Did you ever lose it in the lights?
I fumbled it tons of times. I don't recall specifically losing in the lights. I just remember clearly just completely missing it.
When you do stuff like that is definitely, you do a lot of live things in front of a crowd, but when you do stuff like that and then you see a guy like Steve Austin, who I don't think he ever dropped a beer.
Never dropped a beer.
Yeah, and you're like, how the fuck does he do that?
Because he's Steve Austin and I'm not.
That's probably a good answer.
The thing about when you screw up like that, you have to acknowledge, I think. You have to acknowledge that you screwed up. The people that try to, I'm going to pretend like that didn't happen, the crowd shits all over you. You're like, oh, come on, man. But if you just stop and go, yeah, you saw exactly what I just did.
Right. Now, is that kind of hard?
Laugh along with you.
Right.
What's that?
Is that kind of hard? Like when you're trying to be like the heel character and something goes wrong that's obviously funny, and people make more like, do you want to play it like, okay, I still got to be a dick about this, or you know?
Yeah, kind of. You don't want to, like, and I've always sort of towed that line where I have a hard time just being a straight dick, and I often tend to try to get funny, you know, just because it's just my natural instinct to go that way. But yeah, it's definitely an internal struggle. Like, I want to do this thing and make it funny, but I can't really make it funny because I'm wrestling the Undertaker right now, and I'm supposed to be super dick,
right?
You know,
and slightly scared.
Yeah,
it's like there's a dead guy coming to the ring.
Yeah.
How many times has being a funny-ish dick helped in your real life?
Well, it's got me out of a lot of fights, I think, in high school and things like that. I think I can't think of any really off the top of my head, but I know that it's helped me out tremendously.
Okay.
It's definitely helped me out in the wrestling world. Can you hear that, by the way?
I can. What's going on? Are you guys shoveling snow?
Our heating went out, so I've got a heating person in here right now fixing my furnace.
Oh, God. And how cold is it there?
It was, when we came home yesterday, it was like 64 degrees in here. So not terrible, but not wonderful either. But we were more worried about the kids. So we got some space heaters in the room. So we got the kids last night. We get home and it's 64 degrees and plummeting. And we thought, oh boy, what are we going to do? So had to call me.
Have you ever had, okay, so this is going to go slightly back off topic, but let's say you're in a match like with The Undertaker. In the back of your mind, have you ever gone, oh, fuck, the heater doesn't work, and now I got the heater guy to come out?
No, I don't think so.
You never like thought about, like.
I think if something like that is going through your mind at that time, it's time to hang them up. You know, like I've always said, I've always heard people say that the minute you stop being nervous before you go out, like I'm always nervous no matter what, whether I'm in front of 50 people or 80,000 people at WrestleMania, like I'm always nervous. And I've always heard people say, like, the minute you lose that, just hang them up because you don't care anymore. So I think if I was thinking about the heater or something else,
well, man, it's on your mind. You know, your kids are home. You know, your wife's home. There's no heat.
Right.
I'm not saying right in the match, but like on the way to the ring, maybe kind of like, fuck.
No. I'm losing you a little bit. It's a little.
Is it the heater guy?
The sound. Maybe they hit a wire.
The heater guy's fucking with you. So, do you get nervous like the first time? So you have a wrestling school. The first time you were doing classes, like, did stuff like that get you nervous?
What stuff give me nervous?
Like doing in front of a class. Like now you're teaching. Like there's a difference between performing in front of people and now teaching.
Absolutely. I mean, I was scared shitless. The first time can I swear in here, by the way? I'm sorry.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Totally a different animal, you know, and I can do it. I feel like I can do it a little bit. And now I have to teach other people how to do it and not, you know, sound like a complete bumbling idiot. And, man, plus you got, you know, I had 40 some people in my first class. So I'm sitting there talking to 40 people and they're all looking at you like this. And I don't know, it's funny because sometimes when I'm running class, I'll say things and I get no reaction from anybody. I'm like, am I getting through to these people? And they're just absorbing it. They're taking it in, I think. At least that's what they tell me.
Do you feel like, just coming from an outsider, let's say I signed up for, you know, to be in your school. I feel like it would take me a good maybe class or two to not go, oh, fuck, that's Ken Anderson. You know what I mean? Like to get out of that fanboy mode and go, okay, he's just here to teach me things. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hoping that everyone there is a fan of wrestling. Yeah, and as a fan of wrestling, you're going to be like, who did you break in with? Like, who trained you?
Two guys in Green Bay, Mike Krause and Eric Hammers, who never made it to the WWE, but they were very intelligent, knew a lot about the business, you know, knew the basics.
Right.
But Brad Rangans was a guy he was like my first big trainer, big wrestling star that really like fine-tuned me,
Right.
Yeah, there was and to be honest with you, there was a point in my WWE career, even my TNA career, where I was just like, this is just another job. Cool job.
Right.
But this is just my job. Of course I'm wrestling The Undertaker. Of course I'm wrestling Shawn Michaels.
Right.
But there's still always that thing in the back of your head, like, I'm still a wrestling fan. That's fucking Steve Austin over there. Like, that's
right.
Booker T. That, like that kind of stuff doesn't go away. I think I'm able to kind of squash that emotion, but it's still there. It's still like I was wrestling Sting. I got put in a program with Sting, and I suggested that because I had the blonde hair, I suggested that I maybe dress up like old Sting, blonde-haired, colorful, flamboyant outfit Sting, and he went with it, and then he was the one that painted my face every time we went on and did the thing, and I'm sitting there, and the kid in me is saying like, fucking Sting is painting my face like Sting.
Right. Right. That's a good segue. So let's go back to the kid. What did you always want to do this? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
No. I always wanted to be in entertainment. I knew that from the time I was little. I just thought I wanted to be an actor or something like that. It wasn't until I was in my 20s, I think I was like 20 or 21 years old when I first started watching wrestling. And it was sort of, my friend sort of twisted my arm, and I hated wrestling. I thought it was stupid. And I always made fun of him for watching it. And then one night it was just the two of us hanging out, drinking beer and playing cards. And he's like, we're going to put on wrestling tonight. And I happened to see this bald guy driving to the ring with a 6-pack of beer on his lap. And just the way that Steve Austin, right then and there, I was like, okay, he's cool.
Right.
Everything else sucks. And then I started watching week after week after week, and The Undertaker's cool too. And then pretty soon I was like roped into it, and I was just completely hook, line, and sinker. That's all I talked about. That's all I cared about was pro wrestling. But wrestling was super hot. It was white hot at the moment,
Right.
It was when during the Attitude Era. Monday Night Wars.
When so let's go back. When you said you wanted to be an actor, entertain, did you like act in anything in school? Like, did you do school plays or anything like that?
Yep. I was in forensics in high school, which is a bunch. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like a bunch that you can do debate, poetry reading, and stuff like that. And I always did play acting. And I went to state every year that I was involved. I think I was involved 3 years. I went to state 3 years, got 3 gold medals.
Wow. Nice.
But my wife, hang on here. My wife has been making it since Zoom has become a regular thing in our lives.
Okay.
My wife, every time I'm doing one of these things, she'll walk out naked one day.
Okay.
Lingerie, and she just came out with this sign that, yes, I'll take one right now, please.
Okay, so I was gonna say, I hope she's not naked with the heater guy there, because things can get really uncomfortable. BJ, you mean like Sam's Club and BJ's, right? Like she's going to the store and she wants you to.
This is why we're together. This is why we're together, folks.
See, so that's pretty awesome. The one thing. I never try. I try to look for like silver linings and things. The whole COVID thing, like it's gotten us used to this whole Zoom, life where, for a couple hours a day, like you're on a call like this, or maybe your wife is. So it got you kind of used to it. Like if we didn't have those little moments, like things would really suck.
You're right. I like the COVID thing. I don't like it. But I like this. I really do. I like the fact that we don't have to, how much time is wasted. I heard you talking to Cody about this. Like how many businesses now realize like we don't need to have bricks and mortar businesses everywhere. Like we don't need to have these. We don't need to fly people in for business meetings. Like we can do this.
Right.
And also like we don't need to spend like we can chit chat and you and I after you hit pause or hit stop, we can bullshit for a couple more minutes.
Right.
But like we don't need to sit and BS for an hour beforehand and an hour afterwards when you have better things to do and I might have better things to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I agree. And also it's been good for a person like me because before this all happened, I mean, Ken Anderson's busy. All these people that I talk to are busy, but now they're kind of like home more, or they're at least in a one space more where they have the Zoom thing. Like I could imagine a year ago where if I said to somebody, can you sit on a Zoom call? They'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what is Zoom?
Yeah.
Why I don't know how the computer works, but now everyone's like, yeah, totally. Send me the link. Like you were like, I'm going to be on my iPad, whatever. Like you had to figure it all out. So I understand what you're saying. Like while the virus itself might not be a good thing.
That's terrible.
Yeah, we've learned. But have you found that, okay, so I'm in Jersey. I've found that life has kind of slowed down a little bit. But I feel like you live in an area, you're in Minnesota, where things are already kind of slow. So did things really slow down, or like what happened in regular life?
Yeah, I mean, everything just came to a complete standstill. Honestly, for the first 3.5 weeks, I did not leave my house. When I say to you, I didn't leave my house. I didn't leave my house. I'm not exaggerating. That's not hyperbole. If we needed groceries, my wife she wanted to do it. You know, she's like, I'll go run and grab some groceries and come back. I loved it, to be honest with you. Like, I've always been sort of, not always, but like in the last, I would say 10 years, I've become more and more of a homebody where if I'm not working, I'd rather be home. I don't want to be out and about doing a bunch of things and running here and there. I would rather just be home with either my family or just my wife playing video games, you know, something like that.
What do you guys play? Do you guys play against each other?
No, well, my wife just got me onto Rocket League a little bit, but I'm not really too much of a sports game guy. I'm more of like Fallout, Tomb Raider, that kind of stuff.
Can you play those games late at night? I can't.
I can play them 24 hours a day.
They keep me up. Like they make me like so anxious that if I play them and try to go to bed, I'm like shooting people in my mind and I can't sleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm just if I start playing, I don't want to put it down, you know. You know, if I've got an appointment in the morning or something like that at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going, I've got, I can play for another, you know, couple, like maybe another hour and I'll still get 4 hours of sleep.
Can you go right to sleep?
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. I'll lay there and think. My mind goes in 100 different directions. But it's weird. When I'm traveling, I can sleep anywhere. If I have an hour-long flight, I can nap for 45 minutes and pop up, and then I'm good to go.
Where's the oddest place you've ever fallen asleep?
Driving, probably.
Oh God.
No, actually, it's kind of, that's, you know, I've been on some really, really long car rides where you're pinching yourself and rolling the window down and practically sticking your head out the window. The thing in wrestling when we're on road trips together is that the person that's in the passenger seat is always the road buddy. They're required to stay awake to keep the driver awake, unless the driver says, I got it, I'm good, you know. But one time,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I want to hear your story. Go ahead.
So one time I was in Washington D.C. with Miss America, Mick Foley, and Chris Nowinski, right? And we were going to do something for the USO or something like that, some appearance, and we were on this shuttle bus, and I looked over and I saw the driver is doing this, not enough, and I kind of nudged Mick and I said, "Look," and he went, "Ken, that's really messed up. Like, why didn't you say anything to him?" Sir.
I like how your first inclination wasn't to wake the dude up. You wanted to tell Mick Foley, "Hey, look at this guy sleeping with our lives in his hands."
Yeah. Mick actually first woke him up, and then he was like, "Dude, that's kind of messed up." Like,
were road trips different when you first broke into the business? Like, or they're all always been kind of the same?
Well, I mean, they were different in the sense that I remember you used to have to plan a lot more for your road trips because cell phones weren't really a thing. You know, people were using calling cards still. And that was right when I first broke into business. So if I did a road trip, it was like once a month or once every 2 months or something like that. It was few and far between. But even when I first got into WWE and got on the road, we would have to print out our directions off of MapQuest. We go on MapQuest, like, you know, this is the hotel that we're staying at, from the hotel to the arena, and then the arena to the next city. And I mean, you had a stack of papers like this high of just directions, and you have to keep them all in order. And I'd staple each section together, and you know, and then the Garmin's came out, the big things you'd sit on your dashboard, and now it's like, how did we function without this? Like, how did we possibly function without one of those?
We didn't. And one of the things that you just mentioned that I was laughing about the other day. So when you would print out the directions, it was I don't know if this was just me that would do this, but it would say like in 7 miles, turn right or whatever. And you'd look at your odometer and go, okay, it's at 44 right now. So if I add 7, so right around that time, I need to look for this right turn or whatever it was. And now you're just like the things like turn right, turn left.
And then the worst part was if usually when you're on the road with some of the boys, like you get lost in conversation, telling stories, whatever. And like, hey, I think we were supposed to turn like 35 miles ago. And then you got to try to actually pull out a map, a real map, and figure out where the hell you were. And
did you ever strategically plan to have guys in your car like, okay, so-and-so is a map guy, or this guy is always good at being awake, or did you just kind of like whoever it was?
No, I think it was, you know, whoever you really connect with in the locker room, for the most part, you ride with different guys and you get a feel for the way they are. And like some people you're compatible with, and, you know, some people, I think you're compatible with I was compatible with everybody, at least I think. But, you know, obviously some more so than others.
Right.
And I think that's just the way it would be. You know, people used to tell me that Gail Kim was like very meticulous in her scheduling and stuff like that. So they sort of just left all that stuff up to her. But yeah, I can't really ever remember specifically picking guys and, you know, putting a team together that would make the trip.
See, I would do it like a class project. Like, okay, this guy's going to do the most of the work. This guy's going to make us look good. You know,
you're going to sit back and delegate.
Yeah. I'm going to be the guy that makes sure the bus driver stays awake. That was your job, man.
Oh, well.
So let's talk a little bit about the wrestling school again. Are you back to live classes? Like, how's that working?
Not at all.
No, not at all.
No, we haven't gotten you know, I looked at the guidelines, and you know, we can't. We have to social distance still. So I just don't see how that's possible. And even if we were thinking about doing just promo classes and going over watching matches and stuff like that, which I think is super important. It's always been part of like what I teach. And just staying away from the physical stuff as much as possible, other than blow up drills and conditioning. But even, you know, any ring stuff, if you're doing rolls and things like that solo in the ring, then you get out, and then 5 seconds later, somebody else is rolling in your sweat and your COVID-19 possibly.
Yeah.
So we just, until we get a real handle on this, I do not want to be one of those businesses that is labeled as a hotspot for, you know, not even forget the labeling. I just don't want to be a part of it. You know, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I got people that are way smarter than me. I'm a dumb wrestler. I got people way smarter than me just saying like, hey, we got to follow these certain guidelines to get rid of this thing. Until then, I'll listen to them. Yeah, and in a few years, if we do find out that this was all BS, and we didn't need to social distance, and we didn't need to wear masks, you know, the mask thing is not really a big deal. I don't care. it doesn't really cause me any inconvenience. I have to wear underwear to the store too.
Right, right.
Nobody's complaining about that. You're taking away my rights.
You know, like, yeah. So the mask thing, I just don't understand. Like, the people just be common courtesy and wear it. But the one good thing that I think has come out of it is at least maybe we're all a little bit more sanitary and healthy. Like, at least maybe you're clean, like, because people are pretty fucking gross. So at least more people, there's like more places to sanitize your hands. There's more, at least we learn that to not be gross.
But I do sort of, I always sort of have believed that, you know, the people that run, I've always found that the people that run around sanitizing all the time are always the sickest. I don't know, that that could be coincidence. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I never really paid any attention to that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was rarely sick. Mm-hmm. Like I said, that could be total coincidence. You know, I could be one of the lucky ones that just, I'm George Burns, smoked cigars and lived to be 99, you know?
Right. I have read theories about that like the people, like as humans, that we don't expose ourselves to enough germs, and therefore we get sick more often because we don't. Whereas, like, you know, our ancestors were around, like, you know, were like fucking eating dirt and shit, and like,
they were fucking living to be 35 years old too.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but they didn't even have the medicine, you know, like they get a cold and die. But like, but like our immune system is not used to all the things, but new things come up every time. So,
oh, Chris got a sliver.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Chris, it's been really good knowing you. You know, people dying from their teeth and
Well, yeah, there is the back, there is that like side of it. But so I asked this question to a couple people that I've interviewed, and I think it'd be interesting from the wrestler point of view. With everything that happened with COVID and how things run now, like, how do you think it changes wrestling 5 years from now? Because it's been a big shift. Like, what stays, what goes, what does the average wrestling organization or show look like?
I think it pretty much stays the same. I don't think much changes. I don't think much has really changed now, other than the fact that we just don't have live crowds right now. But I still think that we need live crowds. I don't think that this has shown anybody that wrestling can obviously survive without a crowd, but it's just so much better with a crowd. You know, professional sports, football, baseball, they've figured out, you know, and they even look at the WWE with the Thunderdome,
right?
Baseball, all the sports putting, you know, cardboard cutouts of people in the stands, because like visually, you just need that. You need there to be people. I don't think that changes at all. Personally, I would like to see the way that wrestling is presented overall. Like, I feel like it's been presented almost the same way for like the last 40 years, 40 years. It's the same, you know, when one person talks to each, you know, Chris Illuminati, I need to talk to you. Hang on, hit my music and give me a mic. I need to go talk to Chris in the center of the ring in front of everybody, you know, like, just things like that. I wish that things wouldn't always, and to be honest with you, to be fair, I don't watch a whole lot right now. I watch when one of my students or a friend says, hey, watch this, it was really cool, I'll watch then, but otherwise I'm not watching wrestling. So I don't know, maybe this stuff is happening, but I just wish that everything didn't have to take place in the building. Yeah. Like, you know, at WWE, they had all these little sets, like everything happened backstage at the arena, whatever arena we were at. When we're all, you know, why not do things at the gym? Why not do things at people's homes or at restaurants, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, the one that bothers me the most, and I know people are fucking sick of it, the camera that's eavesdropping on the two people having the conversation, like they don't know there's a fucking camera in their face and they're saying this thing that's secret, but like there's a camera right there. Like what else would we be watching? you know,
Yeah.
like little shit like that.
It's kind of silly.
Yeah.
But it's presented in a way that, like, you know, it's supposed to be live sports, but then you have shit like that happening where it's the fly on the wall. Like, you can't have it simultaneously both ways, I don't think. Yeah. Without insulting people's intelligence.
Right. Like, we're just supposed to believe that or another one, I don't know if the WWE even still does this, but the guy or girl is backstage watching a monitor where the person they're going to be wrestling is wrestling, but they're like standing on an angle. Because you all know when you watch television, you stand on an angle to watch it. You don't. No, I stand right in front of the television.
Right. That's another thing that, while we're on that topic, like, the thing that kind of drives me crazy is the one camera shoot all the time. Mm-hmm. Whereas in a movie or some television show, if you and I are talking, you get to see a close-up on your face, a close-up on my face, and then there's also the two-shot and they can, like, cut back and forth. So when you're talking, we see your face and the back of my head, and, you know, why can't we do more shoots like that, especially when we have backstage brawls and beatdowns? Because I feel like there's nothing worse than, you know, seeing guys pulling their kicks and punches in a backstage brawl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we could, I mean, theoretically, like, we could use Hollywood if I swing a chair and the camera's behind me, and I swing a chair and I miss you by 3 feet, you can still sell it and add special effects, like a sound effect. Right. And it looks like I hit you over the head with the chair. So, you know, like, I don't know why we don't use things like that more in wrestling. 2 camera shoots. TNA actually did it for a while.
I was going to say, when you were in TNA, like, they used to do stuff like that. I was like, the Aces and Eights stuff, like, some of the stuff they did would kind of
it was, I think that was Jason Hervey. I believe it was Jason Hervey and Eric Bischoff's, you know, when they were starting to do the 2 camera shoots. And I just felt, and it requires some editing, though. And that's, I think, you know, that's the problem, especially when you're producing, like, something that's live. It's hard to do a 2 camera shoot, because then you have to have somebody, you know, back there punching buttons, and you don't want to see the other camera. So I get that that's more difficult. But I think for things that are taped and put in the can that can be edited, I think it would do the wrestling business a great amount of service to start thinking along those terms.
Do you think it's because they kind of try and put out too much goddamn content?
I do think, and I have thought for a long time, that it is so, the wrestling is just so oversaturated. Yeah. I'm so, and don't get me wrong, because, you know, 5 years from now, we could be right back to where we were, where there was only one place to work. I'm so happy right now that there's so many different outlets and places for people to work and do this. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I've always said a wrestling writer working for WWE is one of the hardest jobs in the world, because you have to, you know, that's even before they split the brands. It was like you had to write a 2-hour Raw, 2-hour SmackDown, a pay-per-view every month. You had web content. You had Sunday Night Heat and Saturday Night, you know, Velocity or Jacked, or, you know, it was like all these different shows, 52 weeks a year. There's no off season, no downtime. And you don't even really get to enjoy your success or really dwell on your failures at all. You just kind of like, okay, well, that happened, and on to the next thing. You know, WrestleMania hits, and literally that night, everybody's thinking, okay, what are we going to do for Raw tomorrow night? Yeah. You know, it's
insane.
Whereas in football, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now everybody's done. Nobody thinks about it for a couple months. And I feel like the law of supply and demand works. Yeah. De Beers Corporation has a monopoly on the diamond industry. They have stockpiles, warehouses filled with diamonds, and they only allow, like, I'm going to give you 10 diamonds, and I'm going to give this guy 20, and it drives the price up, you know, because people want them. I feel the same thing is true, or could be true, with wrestling. Instead of doing these empty arena things I'm not talking about like AEW, because they're new to the scene. You know, they don't have the library that WWE does, but like, I feel like WWE literally could have said, we're going off the air for the next however long this takes. Mm-hmm. And they could have plugged all of the stuff that's online, all those cool documentaries and like the Monday Night Wars and, things like that.
Yeah.
And caught people up to speed with the history of wrestling, mm-hmm. and then leave them sort of clamoring for, I can't wait to watch two guys lock up.
Right. Well, what ticks me off about, so I have the WWE Network, and they have this, and I don't know how much they have, but I know they have an extensive library of like all the old stuff. Like there's Mid-South on there, there's AWA on there, there's all stuff, but they tend to only put up stuff that involves guys who eventually became big WWF stars, like got their start there. So like if you go to the AWA stuff, there's literally like maybe 5 or 6 hours of content. Most of it is Shawn Michaels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like, no, show me everything. I mean, there is like, they'll show an entire show, an AWA show, but like most of it it's like, see Shawn Michaels and the Rockers debut or whatever like that. And then it's like the hour show, but like he's the focal point. But it doesn't just have like a random AWA show from like 1983 where where nobody knows. Like you have an entire network where you can put an extensive amount of stuff on there. Just throw it all up there. Like what's the worst that could happen? Then no one watches it? Well, okay, no one's already watching it, so put it on the network and no one not watches it. Like what's the deal?
Yeah.
Like, and build like, and then maybe you build a following for that, and then it like sparks into something else. Like you don't know, like you have this extensive library. Like the problem with me and the WWF has always been, to them, they're the only people that ever did wrestling, and anything they ever did before and after, like nothing counts. Only WWE counts. Mm. And they like erase history, and it's like, it just kind of like, it just bugs the shit out of me.
I mean, but I sort of understand it. Like, I don't necessarily agree that they erase history. They just don't shine a spotlight on it. But I sort of get, that wasn't us. That wasn't our thing. But I see your point that, they could, I think they would do wrestling a great service if they actually spotlighted some of those things that they weren't a part of, that they didn't have their hand in.
Right. Yeah. Spotlight all of it. Like spotlight wrestling, not just WWF.
Yeah, exactly.
So I promised that we wouldn't just talk about wrestling. So we're going to talk about other stuff. So when he's not like teaching or wrestling, what does Ken Anderson do? What's your normal day? What's your,
Well, lately I've been actually learning a new trade.
Oh, nice.
And it's something that I never thought that I would do, but COVID happened and I'm sitting at home, and my dad has been a drywaller, finisher. It's, he's done stucco and things like that, plastering for the last 46 years. And he just said, like, if you come down here, he lives 2.5 hours away from the Twin Cities. So he said, come down here and I'll teach you everything I know, and I'll bring you on jobs with me and things like that. So that's what I've been basically doing. When we don't have the kids, we load everything up and drive down to La Crosse, and I spend every day getting up, going to work, plastering, drywalling, stucco. I've been doing it all. So, and I really enjoy it. Like, it's fun.
Does working with your dad at the age that you are kind of change some of the things you do as a parent?
Well, here's the interesting sort of dynamic that we have going on. My dad wasn't in my life until about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So my dad, when I was born, just bounced. He wasn't ready to be a dad. And I don't know the exact details, but my mom had always told me that he paid her like $2,000 through the courts and to just walk away. And then when I had little run-ins with him throughout my life. When I was about 10 years old, I started getting curious, and my mom, rather than squashing that, said, hey, which was really great. She encouraged me to reach out to him, and I met him, but we never really stayed in touch. And then I think the next time I met him for the first time when I was 12 years old, and then I met him again when I was 18, and we had a couple run-ins throughout my life. And then I want to say it was about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less, probably 8 years ago, because the kids were actually getting ready to be born. My kids are almost 7.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my math is. I'm doing the math in my head as we're going along here. It's probably
okay.
about 7 years, and
okay.
not that really matters.
Okay.
But I found out through a friend of mine, the guy that trained me actually said, "Hey, I ran into this guy at a punk concert, because this guy's a punk rocker in the punk industry." He said, "I ran into this guy who said he was your brother, and I have his phone number, and he said for you to call him." And so I thought about it for a while, and then I reached out to him, and it turns out I got this brother. I have 2 other sisters. So I have this whole other family that I never really knew about. And then we started really connecting and hanging out, and I have no ill will. I never have had any ill will towards my dad for leaving. Like, take it or leave it. I am who I am today because of the things that happened to me, and the situations that were thrust upon me. So it's like, we get along great today. And, but I don't know if it necessarily changes anything the way that I parent. I just know that, going through all that, not really having a dad. Well, I didn't have a dad for 5 years, and then I had a stepdad who I really was afraid of growing up, like super afraid of, for the first probably, 10 years that my parents were together, that my mom and my stepdad were together. So, like, in that sense, there's so many things that happened to me when I was a kid that I've always said, I can't wait to not do that shit to my kids when I'm a parent. I make it a point to tell my kids they're going to be sick of it, if they're not already, of hearing dad say I love you so many times every day.
There's nothing wrong with that. Do you, I just read online today, I already do this, but do you kiss your kids? You're supposed to kiss them a lot.
All the time. Like, yeah. I've stopped. I don't kiss them on the lips, but I kiss them.
Right.
Their faces, like, dad, stop,
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're normal. We don't kiss on the lips, but oh, it's like that in their family, huh? So what's it like to go from, you have this smaller family, to all of a sudden, holy shit, I've got brothers and sisters and a dad, and how does that change?
It's kind of cool. It really is. It's cool. And it's weird because it doesn't feel like they weren't in my life for this great amount of time. It just feels like family. It's weird. I don't know what that is, because, I know that blood doesn't necessarily mean shit. There are people who adopt children who, that's their kids. They love those kids, and the kids love them back. And I know that sometimes there are situations where there are parents that are absolutely horrible to their kids, and family members that are terrible. And, but for this, it just, the way this works, it just feels like they've always been there. Feels great.
And do you get to, like, hang out with them a lot, or, like, connect with them a lot, or?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I like I said, I've been hanging around with my dad a lot lately. So just listening to him and hearing him tell stories, and he's a master at what he does. He really is he's really good at what he does. And every time we're on a job with other people and he's not around, the other guys say, like, hey, your old man knows what he's doing, listen to him. That's really cool.
What's the difference, what's the sense of accomplishment? So in your one profession, you're a wrestler, where you get in there and everything is kind of like, I don't want to say opinion based, but, like, if you have a good match, like, it could be a good match visually, but in your mind you're like, I fucked this up. But now what you're doing, it's like, no one can argue. That's a wall. The wall is up. It's going to stay there. Like, how does it feel to, like, have a finished product now, as opposed to, like,
it's very similar in the sense that you have this picture in your head of what it's supposed to look like, and that's like a match. We lay it out in the back and we sort of talk about, this is what we want to achieve. And then when you actually do it and you see it all come together, so it's sort of like you're getting little reinforcement along the way. Yeah.
what's harder on the body?
You know, I would say pro wrestling, but I did stucco for the first time last week, and
Okay.
I told my dad afterwards, because my dad, you know, he says things in absolutes a lot, and I'm not an absolutist. Like, wow, no, that's not it's the best to you, but it doesn't mean that it's the best to everybody. You know, like, and he would always say, like, stucco is the hardest job in the world to do, and I'm like, you know, okay, yeah, of course it is. And I told him after we got home, like, that might be the hardest I've ever worked in my life today.
What makes it so difficult? Is it just like heavy?
It was just lots of carrying and lots of, you know, it was just lots of heavy. You're for some reason, the people that manufacture this stuff only make the bags of stucco in 80-pound increments. So I've got to go, you know, I'm lugging, I think we went through 80 bags of stucco the first day, having to lug 80-pound bags over, and then you got to pick them up over your head, and then you mix the mud up, and then I have to carry it up, you know, in buckets up this scaffolding. You know, it was crazy.
At any point were you like, God, I'd rather be in the ring with someone completely stiff than doing this?
No, actually, I remember thinking, like, I should probably be thinking that, but I'm enjoying it. Like, I enjoy the physicality. I enjoy the hard physical labor. I like working with my hands. I don't think I could ever sit at a desk. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
And that's not to take anything away from people that do, but I personally I would go crazy, I think. But yeah, I like the physicality. I don't always want to work that hard though. Like, I do like one of the things that I really enjoy about the taping, you know, hiding the cracks in drywall and things like that, is that artistic element. You know, my dad told me, he's like, if you look at a wall and it looks flat, it's not actually flat. There's cracks in there, and there's tape over the joints, and we have to do a really good job of hiding those cracks and, you know, hiding the differences in depth. So I like that aspect, and I like the fact that I can just put my headphones in and listen to music or listen to a podcast, and completely. I listened to you and Cody Rhodes while I was stuccoing the other day. So.
Oh yeah, anything you want to say about it, or?
It was fantastic. Other than I told you, I texted you right after. I said I thought this was called Not About Wrestling.
I know.
All you guys talked about.
Well, I know.
And then at the very end, you were like, "Say something about Zelda."
Yeah. Well, because he had a time limit, I didn't want to go over it. But that one thing, I mean, so everything is kind of about wrestling, but not quite. Like the promos, yes, those are wrestling. But like I was pissing myself laughing and crying at some of those promos because he's keeping a straight face because he's heard them, you know. Yeah. But like, have you ever had, like, maybe not you, but have you ever been there in the middle of like a promo where it's just going off the fucking rails and you know the guy is just struggling?
Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head other than, you know, something that pops into my head is they were doing sort of like a Tough Enough thing at TNA for a little bit, where they would have a couple guys come out and wrestle, and then there would be 3 judges, and it was like Al Snow, Bruce Pritchard, and for whatever reason for that, and then they would have like a guest, like those were the constants, and then they would bring in a new guest. Yeah. For whatever reason, this week Ric Flair was the guest, and I guess they had predetermined where they were going to do they were going to do a no, a yes, and a no, you know, so the guy wasn't going to progress. They had predetermined that. And I guess Flair just goes, "You know what? I like you. You're hired," and gave him a second yes when he was supposed to give him a no.
And then what did they do after that?
I don't remember. I just remember, like, the guys coming to the back, and Bruce was the writer. He was the head guy in charge, and Bruce was just like, "What are you gonna do? It's Rick." Like, you know.
Is it?
I think I might be conflating this, but I feel like that was Joey Ryan. Like, it might not have been him. I know Joey Ryan had a thing where, like, he cut a promo on somebody. He had like a little back and forth with, maybe that was Taz. That was a different time I'm thinking of. But
It's funny you bring that up because I hear a lot like some of the Flair stories, and people are like, "It's Ric Flair. Like, what are you gonna do?" Are there any other guys that are like that in the business where people are like, "It's so and so. What are you gonna do?" Like, they just kind of get away with, and they're not purposely malicious. It's just
Yes.
that's there they are. That's them.
Yeah,
And,
there's a couple guys that I can think of that, there's one in particular who's just a yarn weaver. Like everything is exaggerated, and for the most part in our business, the guys go, "Get the fuck out of here!" Like, come on, that didn't really happen. But for whatever reason, this guy we all just sort of laugh about it, like, really? Oh, that happened? Oh, and then we'll like, oh, and then what happened? Tell us more.
The person who's popping in my head is an older guy. Is this an older guy?
I'm not. I don't know.
I'm gonna ask you when this is over because there's an older guy popping in my head. Let me last question for you because I want to I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So you said your kids are 6, right? They're twins, right?
6. Yeah, 7. They're almost 7.
They're 7. Is it a boy? I forget. Boy and a girl?
Boy and a girl.
Okay. Let's say 10 years from now, one or both of them come up to you and say, "Dad, I want to wrestle."
Yep.
You okay with it?
Yeah, I am. I think I want to make sure that they're trained right, they're trained properly, and that they have something to fall back on. I wish that I didn't have to be a 44-year-old apprentice in the drywall industry or whatever. So I want to make sure that, that's not, they don't put all their eggs in one basket, or at least encourage them to. But I want my kids to be happy. I honestly do. And that goes for whatever they decide to do, honestly, I really mean that. If you're going to be X, I want you to try to be the best X that you can possibly be, and respect yourself and respect others.
I don't know about your kids, but my kids don't listen for shit. So would you have to train them, or would you send them to somebody else? Like, what would you do?
Right now, I think we're pretty good right now.
Okay.
I think they do a pretty good job listening to me, I think.
Okay. But at 17,
we'll see. We'll bridge when we come to it, I guess.
I mean, that would be. Would you want to train him yourself?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. I'd have to see, because I've always hated that sort of. I train other people too at the same time, and I don't want to be the guy that, he's favoring his son or his daughter because that's his son or his daughter. I don't want that to be the sort of dynamic at this school. I want, and I think that might be kind of hard to overcome just naturally. That would be something that you have to fight. Like, of course, you're going to take the extra step with your kid. I hope I wouldn't do that, but who knows?
If you had to guess one of them to get into the business, your son or your daughter?
My daughter.
Really? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. She loves wrestling?
Neither one of them watch wrestling.
Okay.
In fact, it was funny because Davari was over at my house one day and I had the kids there, and he was like, "Do they know what you do?" They were only like 3 and a half, something like that at the time. He goes, "Do they know what you do for a living?" And he said, "No, I don't think so." And do they know you're on TV and stuff? And no, not really. So I looked up something from WWE or TNA, and I put it up on the screen, and the kids were playing around the living room, and it's like, "Hey," Davari said, "Hey, Pierce, Prescott, look, who's that?" They went, "Dad," and then we're right back playing. Like, they couldn't care less. And still to this day, like, I have action figures and stuff here, and my kids will, like, it's not like, "Dad, you got your own action figure." It's, of course, Dad's got an action figure, like.
Yeah. Well, I think for guys our age, like, because I'm the same age as you, when we were a kid, if you saw someone on TV, that's a big fucking deal. Or in some type of video form, that's a big deal. But now we all have phones. We're on Instagram. We can make videos. Like,
everybody's on
phone. Yeah, your kids see you on FaceTime and shit. Like, they don't understand. They don't put the 2 and 2 together that, that is a company that's doing it and putting you on television. So it's not a big deal to them. Like we can I can make my own action figure tomorrow if I want. Like it's to them, when we were a kid, like an action figure, we were like, holy fuck, like you have an action figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to them, it's like
absolutely
completely different. Yeah. So like they don't understand the magnitude of it. And
I don't know about your kids, but my kid, how old are your kids?
10 and 7.
10 and 7. Mine are into YouTube right now, like and video games. Then I still can't process this in my brain that people will spend hours watching other people play video games, like hours on YouTube. And so now the kids want to start Dad, can we start our own YouTube channel? So it's like, I got to have that talk with their mom. Yeah. Is that something that we want to go? Because they've expressed interest in it over and over and over again. Yeah. It's a tough situation, like putting it out there. Here's what you have in store, because this happened to me yesterday. So this is what you're going to have soon. So my 10-year-old yesterday gets done with his Google Meet with all his friends, like their classroom Google Meet. Him and 2 of his friends stay on the Google Meet in their classroom. He takes the laptop, turns it around to face his television, and was playing a video game while his friends watched on the computer, watched him playing a video game, and were telling him what to do while he was playing. And I'm like, what the? It's 2020. Of course they're. What's going on? Why wouldn't you do that? Meanwhile, we're like, I don't know if I could sit down for longer than 5 minutes to Yeah. I like to play the video games myself, but to sit and just watch somebody else do it, I don't think I could do it. Yeah, it's a whole different. You got to have that I need to do. I think you and I are doers, and other people can be like the sit there and watch. Are your kids into Roblox? My son was for a little bit. You know what? There's so many things now that they can only be into something for like an hour, and then there's something else that comes along. Yeah, you're right. First it was like Batman, and then Lego Batman, and then it was Mario. My kid was on Mario. My son was on Mario for a while, and now he's off that and onto Roblox. And it's just. What about Minecraft? Yes, they both play Minecraft. I still cannot understand what the allure is about that or Roblox. I don't understand it. Roblox is literally you just run and jump. One day I went over and I was like, "What are you doing, Prescott?" My daughter, and she was sitting at in the computer world, sitting at a computer desk in a hotel lobby, not doing anything. I was, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm on the internet." And then like a little while later, I looked, she was on a treadmill. And then a little while later, she was up in her room, laying in her bed. And these aren't part of missions that you have to do or anything you don't have to complete a series of tasks. It's just doing that. And I was like, honey, you can do that stuff. There's a treadmill upstairs. We can go. Can you imagine if the whole point of Grand Theft Auto was take naps and what? Well, I feel like Grand Theft Auto 4, that's kind of had stuff like that, go play pool or go surf the web or things like that. But that's where it all started. Yeah. Ken, I want to thank you for sitting down and talking. I'm sure after this you're going to BJ's now, right? 20 minutes before I have to pick the kids up. So. Oh man, then I'm going to let you go. Maintenance girl's still here, so. Oh god damn it. Well, you got to plan it right. You got to be quick. Maybe in the car on the way to pick up the kids. That's a possibility. And I'm going to leave it at that. On a 4-lane divided highway at rush hour. I don't know. You definitely will not fall asleep. No, but thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, man. Ken, thanks so much. I love talking to you. Yep, same here. And that brings another episode of Not About Wrestling to a close. Guests of the Not About Wrestling show stay in their own damn houses. If you like the show, please share it on social or leave a review on iTunes. And remember to subscribe to Not About Wrestling on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/BroBible and find the Not About Wrestling section. Thanks again for listening or watching, and see you all next week. Well, I won't see you at all. You know what I mean.